Sometimes we just need to be fed movements. I'm laughing because I just wanted this when I was younger in my jazz piano career. A lot of times I used to sit down at the piano and stare at like a C minor 7 and be like, what do I even do with this, right? So I would kind of play around and just kind of improvise and solo. Nothing would really come out. This is what you might be doing right now. I know Brendan's told me to land on chord tones, use scalar motion. Just doesn't sound like bebop yet. It doesn't sound like jazz. And a lot of times I've actually relied on or leaned on certain movements or improv concepts that have become a staple to actually creating a professional bebop sound. Stuff like this. Right? I mean, like, that's a great way to do some sort of line or... Right? That sounds so much more like jazz and bebop than what I was doing before. So how do we get there? Like, what are the concepts we can practice or think of to actually start to like align our improv with bebop so it comes out like that? I'm about to share 3 specific improv concepts with you in just a second that you can use and practice so that you can actually grow off these and really sound like a professional bebop improviser. Welcome to the Jazz Piano School podcast, episode number 376. My name is Brendan Lowe, and if you've ever felt stuck trying to learn jazz piano from a million different sources, this show is definitely for you. Each week, I break things down step by step to help you play with more freedom, more confidence, and a whole lot more swing. Everything I share here ties back to the system that I created and that we use inside the Jazz Piano School membership. So if you're ready for more structure and progress, I'll tell you how to check that out at the end of this episode. And hey, if you're enjoying this kind of real-world guidance, make sure to hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. All right, so one of the first things that I demonstrated in the little intro there was a really solid line, essentially just outlining 3, 5, 7, 9, okay? 3, 5, 7, 9. So you can do this in a number of different ways, and you can also expand upon it. Let's do, I think, what did I do in the key of B flat? So your 3, 5, 7, 9 is going to happen over the 2 chord and the 5 chord, and it could happen over the 1 chord as well. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to be going up 3, 5, 7, 9. You see that? Now what happens here over the minor 7 is I'm going to fall down. So I'm falling down to the 7 like this, and then I'm going to use a bebop approach, okay, of a double chromatic. So I essentially have a chord scale above here, or just a chord tone, but I'm going to do a double chromatic into my 3rd, right? So 3, 5, 7, 9, coming down to the 7th. Double chromatic into my 3rd. I'm doing the same thing here. You see that? I'm falling down to the 7th, double chromatic, and then into my 3rd again. And you could go up and then land on the B flat if you wanted to, or drift off into another way, right? So again, this is a great 2-5-1 pattern that can unlock a lot of different movements. Let's check it out again. 3, 5, 7, 9, falling down to the 7. Double chromatic into the 3rd. Down into the 7, double chromatic into the 3rd. Now again, once you hit that 3rd on the 1 chord of the resolution, you can essentially go anywhere, right? You could go down, you could go up, you can do essentially whatever you want, really. But the pattern here in the thing that holds the unlocking power or the fast movement too, I mean, you can speed this up and it sounds flashy and great, right? It's the pattern and the movement which sounds so good in this that when you start to practice over the keys, it not only teaches you the movement, it teaches you about these skips, which are really nice. It teaches you about the chromatic bebop approach into the 3rd. And it also teaches you about us using just scalar motion to get down to different chord tones. So lots and lots of components and learning points happening here when you actually just practice this through the keys and start to integrate it into your tunes. Okay, point number 1 is going to be the 3-3-3, what I call the 3-3-3. This is very similar to the last line because we are kind of using a 3-3-3 pattern, but we're going to take the concept further, and I'm going to give you a little bit more freedom, which is going to start to evolve your improv naturally. So instead of this, 3, 3. One of the reasons that sounds so good is because of the pattern, obviously, but because we're hitting all the thirds. 3rd, third, 3, third again. So how could we actually develop this and kind of branch it out further so we can start to kind of morph it into our own expression instead of just kind of playing a lick? Well, the concept here is 3, 3, 3. So if we just think about targeting all the thirds however we want, we can develop some amazing improv lines that are still going to sound fantastic. So I might go 3. So I went 3, 3, 3. So it's a little bit more challenging, right? Because you have to be the one to actually develop the line to get to the third. But because you're landing on thirds, you're essentially guaranteeing that your line is going to sound great either way because you're hitting those thirds and they sound really good, right? So fantastic line right there. Let's try a different one. That's too similar to the first one. Let's try a different one. Let me see. So again, I'm just kind of messing around this. Now, I like this one. So, no. What did I play? Yeah, I think. So, this. So, I went down to this half-step bebop approach below the C there. I didn't resolve it, though. I just jumped back up to this D. And then third. And then I went up. So that last line there over the dominant chord was all steps, all steps. That was just all chord scale motion, which sounds great, right? Because it's fluidly connecting the thirds together. So try this exercise out. I mean, you can get as wild as you want or as simple as you want with this. It could just be this. Right? So I did dot, dot, dot. That's the third, 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 third. Right? So that was super, super simple. I wasn't using much movement at all. So no matter what level you're at, you can totally use this to sound good and instantly kind of improve the sound of your improv. And finally, number 3, okay? These are like just really easy concepts to unlock great sounds in your improv, is just playing around with extensions or particular extensions. Now, the goal here is to use the extension but resolve it to a chord tone. So let's stay in the key of B flat. I'm going to use the 9 here through every single chord. So the 9 on the C minor, the 9 on the F7, and then the 9 on the B flat major 7. But we want to resolve them. That's the goal of this. We need to resolve the 9s. So I might go... Right, so I did a pattern, and I repeated that pattern on the last chord as well. So I went 9, resolved it to the root. I did a little chromatic and resolved that up into the third. So I'm taking the 9 and I'm resolving it to a chord tone. That's super important for this exercise. And then I repeated the same pattern to create a motif. So just utilizing the 9s in a lot of different ways or experimenting with the sound but with a resolution to the chord tone will drastically unlock so many great sounding movements that are naturally going to come out of your playing when you use this concept. Let's try one more. So here's the 9. Or excuse me, here's the 9 over the C minor 7. So I'm just starting on the 9 here. I'm not really thinking about it, but I'm starting on it and resolving to a chord tone. So I'm resolving to the G here. I'm going to hit the 9, but I'm going to resolve it. So I resolved it down to the F. 9, right? Let's see how we do this. So I picked a bebop approach to resolve it to the third. Let's do that again. See that? So there's so much going on here that will actually extract improvement out of your practice from this particular concept or exercise you can work on slowly, because you're working on delayed resolutions, you're working on extension use, you're working on resolutions to chord tones, and so many other things that are happening. And all at the same time, you're training your ear to hear all these different possibilities, movements, and it's really kind of gaining perspective in a different way on how you see the keyboard, what notes you start on, what notes you land on, and how you can use non-chord tones. I know this is a long sentence. How you can use non-chord tones to resolve into chord tones, kind of for that tension and release sound. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, when you work on these things, I promise you're going to unlock so much within your natural talent and your improvisational abilities. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope today's episode helped bring you some clarity or even inspiration for your playing. If you want a clear path to move forward based on your personal jazz goals, I put together a free resource called the Jazz Piano School Flowchart. It maps out the 3 most common goals jazz pianists pursue: how to play in a band, comping, solo piano, and improvisation. And it shows you exactly what to work on to get there. You can grab it now for free by going to jazzpianoschool.com/flowchart, or just click the link in the show notes. I'll catch you in the next episode, and as always, happy practicing.